Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Jennings. Welcome to the Carffice. Right now it is June 2020, and in the U.S. there's a lot of uncertainty. Some of it is earned, some of it is medical, and all of it is stressful. So people in leadership positions, you will have folks working for you who have some stress and have some struggle. What can you do about that? You can't ease their stress, but you can be compassionate about it. Specifically, I want to mention the social struggle that many folks have around all the biases, but specifically racism, and how to respond to that. The struggle is a lot of people in leadership look a lot like me, a lot of white folks. And a lot of us have real struggles trying to understand how to address racism. So I'm going to give you some recommendations, some hints, some things that I think have helped me along the way, at least be approaching a empathetic supervisor over years of practice. The first thing is to educate yourself. And why I mention that first is to not address your closest African American employees or friends or even acquaintances and ask them, what's this all about? They've lived it. They've explained it to possibly their kids or other folks for a lot of years. Learn about the situation first before you start asking any kind of questions. And you're not going to make a mistake when Googling up a question. It'll come out with a response and you'll get to learn from the resources that are available. Number two, understand right now that when you engage in this conversation, you will make mistakes. You will say things you didn't know were offensive, or you won't have the language to properly express what you want to say or how you want to say it. It's going to happen. My experience so far has been that mistakes that are made in earnest are responded in kind, with a polite, kind response. If you find yourself starting off a question with, I don't mean to sound racist, but just stop. Stop right there. No matter what happens next, it's not good, because you've already set the tone for you think that there's a bias here. Number three, again, understand, think about it now. This is a process. Every correction that somebody offers to you for your behavior, your choice of words, it's not a confrontation. It's an opportunity for you to learn and do better. I'll give an example. I was talking about changing policy with a couple of colleagues of mine. One was African American, one was a white woman. And I asked the question, do we have people who are grandfathered in to this policy who we need to think about as we change it? And my African American colleague kind of sat back in his chair and said, I haven't heard that phrase in a long time. Well, I knew something was wrong, and I didn't know what, but I knew better than to ask and say, what do you mean, what I do wrong? So I went back and looked it up. And then I remembered, grandfathering is a phrase used to restrict people from voting. If your grandfather could read, then you could vote. But since a lot of African Americans at that time that was established, grandfathers could not read, no matter the education of the current individual, that person was barred from voting based on the grandfather. So to say somebody's grandfathered in is to give them grace for something they didn't even do. Once I learned about that and had to remind myself no, that's not true. I was corrected and had to go learn what that phrase meant. It's a phrase that is not needed, because the simple question is, have we made promises to people we'll have to keep moving forward? That's what we're talking about. It's not about grandfathered. It's not about using phrases or even idioms that have a history that we're not aware of. Once you learn, do a little better. This is a struggle, and it's hard to understand, hard to comprehend, and you won't always get it right, no matter how educated you are, no matter how careful you are, no matter how much you care. There will be issues and errors and stumbles and trips, and that's just fine, as long as we continue to move forward. To support your employees, to support the folks you get to work with, just tell them, I'm trying to understand. You're going through things I will never experience. But then ask, how are you doing? And mean it. The earnest question of, how are you, how may I help, goes a long way. So the short, simple answer is, educate yourself, be empathetic, and appreciate that some people are having an experience you'll never have. So for this episode of the Carffice, I'm Dr. Sam Jennings. See you next time.